Divine Source, Great Spirit, thank you for calling us here today to receive your grace and your blessings. We call on you deeply in our hearts and our minds to show us what's real and true. Show us the world in your terms. Show us how the things of the world are meant to be interpreted, how we can use them for healing and for knowing you more clearly, how we can use them for union and communion rather than separation and division. Please show us the love that we are in truth. Show us the light that is residing always in our hearts and our minds. And so it is.
Welcome to Talking Spirit. My name is Jutta, and I'm back with my lovely friend Elizabeth.
Greetings, everyone.
So it seems like today the Spirit has led us into a topic that I think we might just call woke versus awake. And we were just sort of sitting with this idea, and there's always a lot of ideas for these talks floating around, and this morning symbols were kind of showing up and supporting just the exploration of this idea of wokeness and what it means. And as I was kind of praying with it, to me there's kind of two sides to wokeness or being woke. On the one side of it is this sort of all is love, all is light, we're all one, we're the great I am, that kind of idea of spirituality. And on the other side, it's like the other side of that coin, which is a sort of more reactionary look on the world, that it's like we're trying to find a place in the world and adjusting to the world, but also wanting the world to adjust to us. And yeah, so I was just exploring those two ideas in my mind and just kind of seeing how both of those they could be seen as steps on the path to awakening. And when we come together for these recordings, our prayer is always to really let the Spirit show us a new perspective on different topics that we want to explore. And yeah, both of those sides of being woke could be seen as steps towards your awakening, and could also be mechanisms to avoid really going deeper on the path. So yeah, we're again just coming together with this curiosity and openness and willingness to be shown, and yeah, just seeing what the Spirit has to say about these things through the seeming symbols of me and Elizabeth. So welcome, and let's see where it goes.
Yeah, Jutta and I come unscripted, and we do have the prayer to be spoken through. And we generally, talk about worldly stuff, but this one has a different kind of vibe to it, you might say, than some of our other talks. And I can feel the charge because it's so present in the mind, in the one mind. It seems to be so present in the world, these kinds of ideas of wokeness. And so if you hear anything that's not coming back to either feeling loving and like an exploration that's helpful, or if you hear something that seems judgmental or critical, then you're hearing me trying to work out my own mind stuff, and I think it's just important to put that out there, like we're doing this, as you said, Jutta, for our own healing and because we feel guided to. And we're just humble little channels here doing the best that we can. And the Spirit is using this container for us to work stuff out. And maybe in the demonstration of how we hold it and try to play with these energies, maybe it'll offer something that will allow you to look at your own mind. So again, I consider this to be sacred work.
Mm.
not to put myself on some high pedestal here with it, but it's really like valuable to me and really important to me. And I really want to learn how to communicate these really complex things in a way that is truly helpful and that is loving and respectful of just how weird and complicated this experience seems to be here. So, what was really showing up was the idea of, if we're with the spirit and really sourcing from the spirit, then we're working on, it's going to be the default. We will be working with the spirit then, heading towards real true vision. And if we're sourcing from the world to tell us what's important, who we are, where we're going, how to do anything, then we're really, at least from how the world operated for me when I was more focused on it, we're likely to be fighting symbols of darkness, shadow figures, a whole host and parade of images that for me didn't leave me feeling like I was understanding any real true vision or any real way forward. Everything always felt so complex, so complicated. One minute it looks like this energy, means for heating a house is the best thing going. And then somebody finds there's a reason why it's not. And then 10 years later, it's found that this other thing is even better. And then the thing that we thought was the greatest 20 years ago turns out to be, carcinogenic or whatever, right? The mind is constantly generating stories of how it all works. And the complexity for me, I found to be really depressing and really hard and really heavy and really deadening. And so, again, this idea of awake versus woke for me kind of comes back to these conversations that we have over and over again of I have to head towards the spirit's vision for me, and that the world's vision for me, I couldn't find a way to make it work on any issue, relationships, environment, nutrition, finances. We see in this idea of wokeness, in terms of the world sort of stuff, we see how divisive it is. And somewhere in our prayer, like again, we don't come with a script, but somewhere before, because Yuta got real clear this morning, she's 5 hours ahead of me. So I woke up to an email about these topics, and something came in about sarcasm. And I looked up the definition of it and some of the roots of it. And it was tear the flesh and to speak bitterly. And when we look at a lot of the woke stuff out there on the world stage, it's kind of like that. Us against them. My way is right. Yours is wrong. I'm going to cancel you. I'm going to make you the bad guy. If you don't support me on this particular topic, I'm not going to support you on that one. All of this divide and conquer, I'm right, you're wrong, is very up in this conversation of wokeness. And it's really so devastating. It's so fracturing. And I don't have a solution to it, to any of it, other than to keep coming back, as I said, to spirit. Like, what do I do with this? What do I do with this? As a kid growing up, it was killer bees and it was flesh-eating viruses. And it was like all these really dark things, right, that were meant to really terrify me. And they did. And I didn't see any way, to participate in these dark images that gave me a sense of peace in my heart and in my mind. And so, again, we're either in the world of vision, true vision, the spirit's vision, or we're in the world of judgment. And so you can kind of bottom line this whole woke conversation that seems really complicated in that, oh, I'm in judgment in the world, or I'm in spirit's vision for my mind. So that's how it comes to me to start this off on my side. So what about you, Yuta?
Hmm. Well, just as you were talking, I'm just recalling how it all kind of started for me, which I've talked about before, which was kind of through conspiracy theories.
Mm.
Like my whole past seemed to start with conspiracy theories. I just remember, like, it was the first time I was kind of living on my own. I mean, I was married, but like, I was with my family. So we were just living and working, and yeah, I just had YouTube at my fingertips. And back then YouTube was still very it just had everything on it. Whereas now, it's a little bit more censored, which is another conspiracy possibly. But you could just find anything. So
Mhm.
I just went for it. I was on YouTube constantly, just kind of looking, like, kind of like digging up all of this darkness that seemed to be hidden under the surface, that nobody really was talking about openly. And like, certainly you wouldn't hear about it on the news or from your president, or be taught about it in school. And that was sort of like the trigger, sort of, that brought me on this path, was like just seeing the craziness in the world, and like the inequality, and like kind of persecution, and just this idea of things being secret, and almost like there being sort of an elite group that is kind of behind the scenes in the darkness, sort of steering everything in the world, and giving us a worldview that they want us to have. That's kind of like where I came from with it. And initially, it obviously brought my focus completely onto the world, but underneath, it was triggering all the stuff inside me.
Mhm.
And I, at that point, didn't know what to do with it at all. And it was really going in. I was basically going into depression and anxiety around how little power I seemed to have to change any of the things that I was learning about. Like, it felt like I couldn't do anything about all of the stuff that was happening, all the darkness that I was looking at. I couldn't do anything about it. And I guess at some point I just felt like I did have a choice in the whole matter. And slowly, sort of, the spirit, as I was kind of becoming a bit more aware of like what was happening, the spirit slowly kind of guided me to the power that I have within my mind. And really quickly, the focus shifted from being on the world to inside me and my mind. And so I think that's even why we had the conversation initially too, that these kind of this sort of these woke ideas, and this kind of, sort of activism out in the world, could be a step towards awakening, because it was kind of like that for me too. I could have
Mhm.
easily gone into some kind of activism with the
Mhm.
things that I was learning about. There was like Walk on Wall Street and stuff like that. I was like, oh, I could go there and like make a difference.
Mhm.
Change the whole financial system. And I just didn't never really had the impetus to
Mhm.
do much out in the world. So it was just natural that the spirit would lead me towards, what's going on within myself, and what can I change within myself that's really going to make a difference in my experience. And I think pretty much everything that we talk about, we always bring it back to, what's my experience, and what's really important here, like, what's the whole purpose of everything. So in this whole conversation too, with this idea of being woke and being part of a woke community or something like that, yeah, for me, it always comes down to exactly what you said too, this whole idea of what's the purpose underneath. What am I looking at this with? Am I looking at it from this perspective of a small self inside a small body, that's sort of at the mercy of everything that's happening outside? and it gets triggered by everything that's happening. Like, we had a little snow today, so if I was in my wrong mind, I could be really like upset, like, oh no, it's not even December. We're already getting snow. It could be like just depressive, or really anything, politics, all the wars, animal abuse, human abuse, all of this stuff could really be affecting my state of mind. But being on this path so long now, I've really learned that I have no function outside of actually healing what gets triggered by what's seemingly outside. If there are triggers around what's going on in the world, which is pretty crazy at this point, then, I want to go in there and find out what piece of me is getting triggered and what's coming up in my mind, like what beliefs are showing up. Am I afraid? Am I feeling helpless? Am I feeling whatever it might be? And that's the place where I've found, and I know many spiritual pathways, have come to the same kind of conclusion, that the only place where we can really make a change is inside of our minds. And I shared this quote with you that I found on Instagram earlier, which is exactly that. And the quote is, "The world around you is only beautiful when you are at peace with the world within you." So that's always my prayer, and I think it's also, the reason we come on here. We want to find the right way to look at the world, and the only way we can do that is by making things right within ourselves. And the only way that we can do that, in our experience, is by accessing this inner wisdom from the spirit within. Because I feel like everyone that comes here to this sort of plane of existence, there's this fire burning inside, and it needs a place to go, and it needs to be stirred and fed, and we can either feed it with fear, or we can feed it with healing. And I think our chosen way is to do it through healing, and it's a very fulfilling way of doing things, and really finding peace in the world that seems to be completely not at peace. So yeah, that's kind of some of the stuff that's popping up for me here.
Yeah, I mean, you've just said so many helpful things. And yeah, it's really, there's just a lot of richness in what you've offered up. And the big thing that was coming back was a symbol that was showing up this morning around the idea of soul retrieval. And in the Peruvian shamanism work, we learned how to find parts that people had disowned, that had become fractured off, you might say. And you might say they're in the underworld or in the unconscious. And from the way the spirit has worked with the two of us, we've been guided to see that the world is an outpicturing of our inner condition. And if we have parts of our mind that we've cordoned off, those parts are going to want attention, but we may not have conscious clarity, right, that they are screaming for help. And so, in the process of being a facilitator, you might say, bridging the worlds with people, helping them find these unconscious parts of their mind and help bring those parts back into the light with spirit so that they can be reintegrated and balanced. I get to see very clearly the storylines that an individual might project out into the world. I have a friend who I've done a lot of work with over the years, and he's had very much storylines of the emperor. It's my way, I'm the boss, I know how this works, these kinds of dynamics that we all have, these archetypal energies in us, right? It's just a matter of how do we dance with them? How do they present? What's our overriding kind of energetic that we are navigating this world with? And through the years of the dismantling of this person going and turning within, seemingly with a facilitator, a go-between between their unconscious and the spirit and, you know, these other levels of mind, this person has changed fundamentally out of these stories and ways of being that we might call the emperor energy, and is much more in the undefined space that is the divine. You know, we get locked into these storylines very definitely. You know, this world is a construct, and it's kind of like we're concrete in a construct. We become concretized. Our minds seem to generate a reality that seems really real. I'm seemingly touching a table right now. Well, we know from our sciences that it's actually just particles vibrating at a certain frequency, certain vibration, right? But our mind stuff experiences it very differently. Well, in a way, the awake part, the awakening, is to help us have those constructs be dismantled. Well, if you don't know your thoughts and your feelings and your opinions and what's operating in the unconscious, in the underworld, if you don't know that stuff about yourself, then those energies that want to be heard and healed, as you said, we all want the healing. And that's really like when I get frustrated or in my own judgment, I come back to that. It's like, oh, this person just wants healing.
Mm.
This person's just calling for help. And they might, you know, be trying to get everybody rattled up about a war somewhere or about the dying royals or whatever it is. You know, it's a call for the healing, and we've all got it within us. That's why we're here. We're here because we're misbelieving and misperceiving everything.
Mm.
And so the spirit has to unwind us, not just from the world's symbols and all the rest, but from this inner dialogue, unwind us from these storylines that, at least from what spirit shows me with people, and it's not right, and it might be, but it seems to be eons of storylines running like a computer software in the background, or hardware, or whatever the language is, that's just running and running and running until we get uncomfortable enough to say, I am so sick and tired of being sick and tired of these stories that I'm playing out. We have to get to a place where we see the absolute insanity of what we're doing. You know, people talk now, you hear it a lot. You know, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, thinking you're going to get different results. Well, that is the whole freaking world.
Mm.
That's the whole thought system here. So, you know, you and I have been led, thank God, to be told and to be shown you can't fix it out there. It literally is impossible. It literally can't happen. Not just, oh, that's a kind of strong thought Elizabeth's communicating. No, you literally can't change it out there. So, in a way, this woke movement, in a way, is the shadow saying, I want to keep you from the pain and suffering that's inside your mind. I want to keep you spun out and confused about how you actually could find the escape route. The spirit comes in to say, I've got an escape route for you. You think you should go march? You think you should go talk to your senator? You think you should go change your diet? You think you should go do X, Y, or Z? And the spirit's saying, come with me. And the place we're going to go is into your own mind. Two different thought systems.
Mm.
And one, we talked about a possibility for a topic. Well, it's here. We talked about, well, what's the difference between healing versus fixing? Fixing is the woke movement. The attempt to fix some external mechanism is what's happening. And it's based on an assumption of judgment, separation, us against them, right and wrong, right? And healing is going to the divine and saying, oh, I got these inner boo-boos that are making me really suffer. And I don't want to be self-centered anymore. And I don't want to play the victim anymore. And I don't want to be making all the players on my stage the right, wrong, good, bad, and all the rest. We have to get to that point of breakdown. You know, most of us don't get onto our path for the awake corridor
Mhm.
because we're floating in some great high ideals. Most of us get to it because we absolutely face plant, trying to fix the world, trying to make it go the way we want it, trying to manifest, you know, whatever. And it's not a judgment. Been there many times, many, many times. And I only say what I say, hopefully from spirit talking through me or from my experience, like you said. Like I have face planted trying to make all kinds of things happen out there. And whatever peace of mind I have, and I have a good bit of peace of mind, it's not complete, but it's my overriding experience now. It comes from being focused on my inner weather with the spirit. It is not conditional on what's happening in the world. And for
Mm.
me to say that is miraculous. That is a sign of a miracle in action within me. Because like you, lots of conspiracies, lots of they're doing this and this is screwed up. And, you know, I mean, those things in a way are real in a way, like
Mhm.
there are some screwy things happening
Mhm.
and there are some dark forces that are doing a kind of kooky dance, you know, but, but that's not where we're going to find what we're required to find for awakening. And in fact, those things will distract us, delay us, derail us, keep us asleep, keep us spun out. So, you know, it's a really juicy conversation. And I like the other piece that you brought because, you know, for me, woke is more of the like politics and the weather and all that kind of stuff. But there is also the woke of a bit more of the spiritual bypassing of
Yeah.
it's all love and light. And, you know, we just have to kumbaya our way out of here and feel
Yeah.
good and think good and all that and like have our positive affirmations, and those are tools that are helpful, as you said in the beginning. Like in the beginning of our journey we might really need a leg up, you know, of some new ways of behaving to undo conditioning, but that's a short-term toolbox for me that, you know, it had, I think we had a talk with somebody who said there was an expiration date on most things in this world, you know, like
Mhm.
those tools had a pretty short shelf life for me. And then I needed bigger tools in my toolbox, you might say, that were really much more internally directed.
Yeah, yeah, I like that you're bringing it back here because I was thinking the same thing, you know, when there is such a strong focus outside on what's going on in the world and or, you know, not even the world, but like, you know, family dynamics and issues with siblings and parents and or kids and issues at school, all of this stuff, you know, all of these things that cause daily upsets. When there's such a strong focus on that, you know, and we do get to that place where it seems like, well, wait a minute, like, can I really do anything out there at all? I mean, I have no control over people, I have no control over society, right? So there must be some other way. And I think, yeah, like, for me too, you know, when I seemingly found my spiritual path, I thought that I could just apply words to my experience and it would change my experience. And kind of the image that comes to mind is putting icing on a mud cake,
Mm.
which doesn't really make the cake better, right? It just looks a little nicer on the outside. So if I, you know, tell myself 100 times during the day that I'm the light of God or whatever affirmations might have popped up at the time, but I wasn't really addressing the cake that's made of mud, then I was literally just putting icing on the crap that's in my mind. And it works for a time, I think, because it shifts your mind into a different way of looking at things, I think. But I think, yeah, like you said, I think there's a pretty short expiration date on that tool. And before long, there it's required that we look at the mud pie or the mud cake and, take the icing off and really see what is in this cake and why is it so awful. And I'm just looking at the cards that I pulled before we did the recording, because we're always in prayer around the topics for these things. And I really didn't have a strong feeling for one or the other, or, what we're going to be talking about.
Mhm.
But, I pulled my cards and, just kind of sat with them. And the one that's kind of like pulling me in, not even pun intended, but the one that's pulling me in is magnetism and
Mhm.
attraction. Where my mind is going is like what you said too, with these kind of lost parts of our minds that have been split off or cut off or forgotten in some other place or time or realm, whenever. Those parts sort of pull experiences into our lives to make them
Mhm.
conscious, right?
Mhm.
So when we're triggered by the media or some situation in a movie, right? Some scene of, I don't know, abuse or something in a movie, or if we're seeing child getting bullied or whatever it may be, or children starving in Africa, whales dying, whatever it may be, all of these things, I think they're getting pulled into our awareness because, like you said, there's something that's needs to be triggered so that it can be seen that it needs healing.
Mhm.
And I think, like, for myself, like, being in that initial stage of getting really triggered and wanting things to change, it also helped me see that it was really it was it was using so much of my energy to try and work out how I could fix what I was seeing on the quote unquote screen in front of my eyes. It was taking so much of my energy and nothing was getting done. So, I'm so grateful for, like, the spirit's grace coming in and really showing me that this is all coming at you so that you look inside. It's like we've already said it a million times, but it's like it's a beautiful setup, isn't it? This whole world is such a great and perfect setup.
Mhm.
Everything on the screen of this world and our lives, on the small scale and on the big scale, we can look at the whole universe and what's happening. The whole thing is literally set up to trigger us. If we if we really like look at it in the right way, right? It's the whole thing is a tool. Like, the whole world is a tool for our awakening. And if we miss that that's how it works, then our focus is going to be outside and wanting to rearrange. Um, what does David Hoffmeister say? Rearrange the chairs on the Titanic,
Oh,
deck
sure.
chairs
Yeah,
on the
sure.
Titanic as it's going down, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's not going to do anything. Like, the boat's sinking. Just leave the chairs. They're going to go down, get off the ship.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and what was coming as you were saying all that was this idea, like, I went to liberal private school, very much about causes and social, concerns and social justice and all
Mm.
sort of stuff. And it's easy to think like, oh, if you've gotten that programming, like, but I'm a bad person if I don't care about these things.
Oh,
Well, who's going to take care of it? Like, oh, if I do what Elizabeth and Yuta and the spirit are telling me to, what's going to happen? Like this idea that we could have an impact on these things, or that we're a bad person if we divest our energy out of them. It's like those are really hard things that we have to sit with the spirit on. And it's but it's this endless parade of conditions that we are going to be endlessly chasing and trying to fix and disappointed by. The message earlier was coming in this idea of disappointment.
Mm.
The world and trying to fix these things is going to leave us disappointed. Maybe for a moment you get your bill passed in a government and you feel like, hurrah, success, right? And then the next minute, you've got somebody changing the bill and, you're now in the loser's box, right? I mean, it's a constant roller coaster ride here, or constant ships going down. And, as you said, we've been guided, get off the ship, jump, jump now, and let's head out of here. And, this idea of, I'm often in the energy of the symbols, and in the kind of way that the energetics present to me, get kind of shown to me in symbols and images, and they have a feeling, and like it's a big energetic thing. So as I'm in this awake versus woke, not a this against that, but just
Yeah.
this two different camps of concepts. In the awake for me is like a big blast of light, undefined, uncomplicated, warm and sunny and feeling good. And then when I go into this feeling of woke, it's like I'm seeing almost like a microphone, which is kind of funny for some of the things that you and I have been talking about, but it's almost like a microphone, but it's an empty vessel, and it's a head on top, and it's just a head. And there's just words coming out and energy coming out,
Mm.
but not going anywhere. And they're all directed in different places, but they're not connecting to anything, and they're not generating anything that is nourishing or helpful. It's just like arrows going in a million different directions, versus awake is saying it's all right here. It's all meant to be a blessing. And this idea was coming in around the heart. In the woke movement, really, actually, there isn't anything loving happening in there. We might tell ourselves it's loving to care about the whales. But in fact, if we're buying into illusions, it truly is illusionary, not as some like metaphysical ghosting concept. It really is. It's not helpful. It's not loving to prop up illusions. What's loving is to say, you're asleep in a dream, get out.
Mm.
Like a David Hoffmeister is a real blessing. And I think I heard him say in a talk or two, like, I probably won't get called in to like give a talk. I think he was talking about giving a talk in a church somewhere once, where he was like saying the ego was a death wish. And I'm hearing him say it. I'm saying, hallelujah, you betcha. Right. And somebody got really activated and upset, I think he said. And he said, I probably won't be invited back. Right. People don't actually, a person in the world doesn't want to hear about asleepness. They don't want to hear about awake. They want to talk about woke. And this isn't a personal thing that's being said right now. This is the impersonal saying, look at it dead on. You're either going for the bright, sunny light, or you're going to be in a world of shadow figures trying to fight it out. Choice is yours, Elizabeth.
Mhm.
Always. It's a choice. And there has to be an activation, you might say, of your heart, because the world is meant to kind of deaden and dull your heart vibe, you might say, and not as a love and light thing, but as a real spiritual technology.
Mm.
You have to activate this sense of your inner fire and your inner connection with that source light. And in that, you get fed
Mm.
the energy that's required to do anything spiritually. And so if we're in the woke camp, we're kind of just a talking head. If we're in the awake camp, still can be screwed up. Welcome to my mind, right? It still can have lots of stuff to work out. But in the awake camp, the spirit is feeding our heart and like blowing life into our heart, like recess. Like I'm seeing a fire that has those old timey fans that were used to like flame it, get the flame going, right? The air pump, boom, boom, boom. I'm like seeing the spirit like pumping us with this light to bring us back to life. The world of images is kind of gray. It's kind of one tone. The world of awake is just this beautiful, sparkly light. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm heading for the sparkly light as best as I can. And it is in part now fueled by my heart. It's fueled by the energy that Spirit's given me that makes me not want to sit in my poopy diaper. Like, get out of your poopy diaper, Elizabeth. Like, come home. Don't sit in the muck. Let's go look at the muck together. Let's go see that it's not real and true. Let you feel, Elizabeth, your devastation, your sadness, your resentment, your rage, your I don't know what to do confusion, right? I had to go over and over again. I still do, over and over again, going within to feel the energy
Mm.
of these disowned parts of my mind and my feelings, my emotions. And in doing that, the light has a place to land. And I'm less distracted and confused by the darkness that's saying, no, it's really important. Come save the whales. It's really important, Elizabeth. You're being an unhelpful, selfish person in the world if you don't care about this political issue, right? The world's constantly coming saying, care about this, put your energy here.
Mm.
Spirit's constantly saying, you can go there, feel free. Like Spirit's never told me not to. Never. I
Yeah.
mean, one time I heard don't do it, but it was like not a never, it was like, it's not your best choice. Don't do it. But it's always an invitation. It's always an invitation. Like, yeah, you can stay there, go for it if you want to. But over here is this really nice thing that you actually really want.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's again, it's like this is the bottom line, right? I think the Spirit is always inviting us, and I feel like, with these recordings too, we're inviting whoever might be listening into really seeing what it is that we're really feeling. How does this make me feel? How does it make me feel to pour my energy into being an activist, or pour my energy into, trying to change laws, and pour my energy into fighting for equal rights for women and men, or any gender. um, how does that really feel? Like, what is the real feeling in there? That's always the invitation from the Spirit. Like, even when he says, like, no, maybe you shouldn't be doing that, you still are allowed to do whatever it is that you must do, right? And yet there's still just the invitation of, well, this is an experiment, so let's really focus on how this makes me feel. And I think that's just our invitation here too, to look at what's our experience really inside with anything that seems to be going on, whether it's in our family or in the world or wherever. That's the invitation. It's a very deep and yet a very simple invitation, just to really get honest with how it feels, and then to make choices based on that. Because when we're in this place of just reacting to things, there's just autopilot happening, and it's really tempting, and it's really easy to get caught in that kind of fire energy. If we're talking about fire, right? It's really easy to get caught up in big social issues, because there's a lot of fire in that. But there's a way that the Spirit wants to use that fire really for this inner transformation. And I think, like, the thing that was kind of coming up too when you were speaking last is, we hardly ever see rewards from when we want to do anything out in the world in terms of making big changes and being a catalyst for change and stuff like that. You might see little results here and there, but like you said, they could be gone in a minute. But the thing with working with the Spirit is that you have immediate rewards. There's an immediate result that's physically palpable inside your own being. And I think that, that's what drives me. I want like you said, that like spark, that's what drives me too. What's sparkly? I often say that, like, if I talk with
Mm,
people too that I'm counseling, it's like, all right, well, where's the sparkle? Let's find the sparkle, because that is like the food of our hearts, you know,
mhm,
and
mhm.
that's what we want to go for. And fighting isn't sparkly, no matter how anybody tries to convince you of it.
Mhm.
But what is sparkly is going for this inner transformation and really finding out where our power is. Because I think like a lot of it is too, trying to find strength in the world and trying to find our place. But honestly, we don't really have a place here at all. This isn't our home. We don't have a place here at all. But we can still discover what our purpose is while we seem to find ourselves here. And that's what I'm all about. I know that's what you're all about. And it's a perspective shift. And I think, these talks too, they're just here for just an opportunity to allow our minds to have a new perspective on these things that are, maybe accepted as general truth otherwise.
Yeah, I just keep hearing this one last thing, which
Mm,
is, what's beautiful about the idea of wokeism is that there is a truth in it if you look for it,
yes.
which is people want to be in service. People want to feel like there is concern for their fellows. People have a desire for connection. And as you said, to fulfill the purpose. And so those underwriting energetics are beautiful, but they get paired with lies sometimes, right? And then they get really confusing. So the spirit is saying, great, all of that caring about your fellows, caring about the animals, caring about the idea and the symbol of life. Fantastic. And yet, let's direct that interest, that inspiration, that spark, that desire to give back. Let's funnel it where it can actually be useful. And that is within yourself. So,
Mm,
yeah, just really, I love everything you've said. And it just felt like that, yeah, was there to
yeah.
finish us off. So, thank you for this. It's been really helpful to me. And yeah, hopefully
Yeah.
someone else gotten some
Thank
out.
you. Beautiful little wrap up there at the end. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.